This is Luke Chason, and you're listening to the Sheriff Podcast.
Welcome, everybody, to an exclusive episode of The Sheriff. Guys, today I am blessed to have another one of Scarborough's finest on the show. Now, this gentleman is also part of three teams that are on my resume, as he was a superstar for the Kitchener Rangers, Rochester Americans, and the Chicago Wolves. Ladies and gentlemen, at 5'10", my guess was a small power forward, but was an aggressive physical style with a willingness to fight. He played an energetic game and was known to finish all of his checks, ladies and gentlemen. Peter DeBoer was quoted as saying that he played like a player about a foot taller than what he was. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, Mr. Mike Duco, aka the Dukes. How are you doing tonight, my friend?
I'm great, brother. Thanks for having me on.
Well, I appreciate it, Dukes, because like we were talking before the show, I love having the boys on, bro. I love like kind of advertising the fact that East End of Toronto, man, we got a lot of talent over here, man. And the resume speaks for itself. We got a lot of guys that had NHL games that grew up like in a certain, like a certain area of Scarborough, of East Toronto. And you're definitely in the group. We were talking about Kevin Henderson before the recording. And man, did he ever have a lot of good things to say to you, bro. We're going to talk about it during the show. You guys shared similar journeys. Now, how are you doing though, Dukes? Like, what have you been up to lately, my friend? I want to get there first.
I've been good. I've been working with a company, which is actually a BC-based company, Okanagan Hockey Academy. They have their main division in Penticton, BC. They have one in Edmonton. David Clarkson just started a division in Colorado. There's one in Austria. And we have one here in Whitby, Ontario. So I was, firstly, once I retired from playing, I became a player assistant coach with the Elmira Jackals in the ECHL. That was an interesting experience for me, to say the least, because halfway through the season, I was then the head coach, and then I was the head coach and the guy of head of hockey operations. So quite the transition for me. Kind of team folded, long story through there, became a Peterborough Pete, back into the OHL as an assistant coach and development side of things. And then the opportunity with the Okanagan came up the year after. So it was kind of a smooth transition into coaching for me and development. And then as I took this job with Okanagan, I became an American Hockey League referee as well. So a lot of different paths for me, a lot of different hats, but still in the game of hockey and still have that passion.
Okay, wait a second, man. We got to go back to this referee thing, because I'm proud to have my level one, man. I used to ref Cardinal Leger games when I was in grade 9 in Pope, and I thought I was a big deal. So what level is it to have AHL eligibility?
Professional Hockey League experience is basically what it was. So I was approached actually that year that I was coaching, because there was a lot of guys, ex-players, that had been kind of pulled into the NHL officiating combine and kind of went through that process. So they approached me that year when I was coaching in Elmira and just said, maybe it's something you could think of. You kind of know the game, you're a good skater. We're kind of leaning in this direction. So I went to Peterborough. I did that route, wanted to continue pursuing the coaching. And then finally I got accepted into the NHL officiating combine. So I'm like, well, I never thought about being an official, but I'm not really going to turn this opportunity away. So I went to Buffalo, did the combine, all the testing, probably harder than most NHL camps I've ever been to. We were on the ice all day. Testing was quite hard. Obviously, you're on the ice for 60 minutes, not the 8 that I was used to some nights. So did that. And, 2 weeks later, I was in Vegas doing a NHL rookie tournament. And then 2 weeks after that, the American Hockey League started, and I was in Cleveland reffing my first ever American Hockey League game.
Man, I would chirp you, Dukes. Come on, ref. Or were you the linesman or the ref?
I was the ref. So it's funny because I like one of my best buddies from childhood is Rich Clune, and there I am. I'm reffing Rich Clune in Syracuse one game, and guys that I train with in the summertime, and ex teammates. I pull up at the center circle, and they're like, "Come on, like no way! I didn't know you were doing this." But it was super cool experience, and I haven't done it for the last 2 seasons since the pandemic became a thing, and I've just kind of really dove into more so development and heading in that direction.
Yeah, dude, man, that's so cool. I'm glad you brought up Richie Clune too. I'm a big Rich Clune fan, man. And
Dickie's a legend. He's a great dude, and he does a lot of really good things. So
yeah, he really does, man. And that's why I want him on the show. And he told me he's going to come when the season's over, but I'm hoping that he tunes into this one and you see how much fun we're having and what we're doing with this platform, and maybe he'll come on a little earlier.
Well, he's a good East End boy, right? So I'm sure he would like to jump on and give some support.
There you go, bro. That's it. So, dude, I mean, that's cool. I had to ask you about the ref thing, man, because I mean that reffing in the AHL is the closest thing to playing in the AHL. Like, I mean, dude, that is so cool, man. The shape that you have to be in to be able to do it, to be able to be, you know what I mean? So like,
well, that's what I said. The combine testing, like it was intense. Like you'd be reffing a game, and everyone had to bring their stick, gloves, helmet, and then you had to play a game, and then you ref a game, and then you play a game, and you do that throughout the day. So all of the refs that were there, and obviously there was a bunch of pro guys that I had played with previously. So like the caliber of hockey was quite good. So I went out there and mixed it up a little bit and scored some goals, and then put the stripes on for the second part of the day, and it was a really cool experience.
Now, and thanks for sharing that, bro. So now, Duke, here's the thing, bro. Like I don't know how you're gonna take this. But like, bro, like I always knew that you were a really good hockey player. You know what I mean? Like you're a little bit younger than me. So
87.
You're in 87, right? So you're the same age as Liam. And, but I got 5 years on you, right? So, we missed each other in the OHL. So I never played against you, right? And then, but I've always been following you and whatever. And I knew that you were fast. I knew that you were a good hockey player, but buddy, I do my research on my guests, and buddy, I had no idea you were as tough as you are, man. Like,
well, as Pete said, I kind of had to be with the style that I played, right? And especially back in the day. Well, I don't know if you remember, but Chris Beckford Sue was my first ever roommate, and you on Rockford, I believe, ended up coming to our house the night before a game. I don't know if you recall that.
Who were you guys?
I was in Rochester. Oh, yeah, that was my first year.
Buddy, I remember that clearly because Drew Larman and Tanner Glass were living in the same complex, because that was my condo that I just didn't want to give up the lease, because I did a hockey school in Rochester in the summer, and Rochester's a good place to train. I'm sure you heard or maybe got a little taste of that when you're with the Amherst. I don't know if you went to any skates, but man, they got a really good pro skate with the Giantas, and Bond Senior will come out, Fitzpatrick, all these guys, right? And yeah, bro. And like, so it was just good to prepare for the year living in Rochester. And me and Sully, Dan Sullivan, we would split the rent and do our hockey schools and have a great summer, man. And
well, the rent was probably quite cheap back then too, so you're probably making good money.
It was cheap compared to Toronto rent right now. But buddy, I think I was paying like, I don't know, man. I was paying like $1,600 a month, and this was in early 2000s. You know what I'm saying? But but they were great places, right on the water, across from Nathaniel's. You can't beat it, right? Right beside the rink.
So you were because that was the same complex that obviously I lived in, right? So across from Nathaniel's, and Tony D's was in there with some of the best wings in the city, and I enjoyed my time in Rochester for sure.
100%, buddy. So this is my style, Dukes. I like to go to the beginning to really get the listeners an understanding of my guest, right? So like we talked about, because I wanted to know like if it would make sense for call you Scarborough's Finest, because you lived in Scarborough for a long time, and I'm sure that was a big part of your journey, living in this area. And so when you were telling me about like all the places in the GTA that you've lived, it was pretty cool. But like, where were you when you were a young little Duco? Like where was the elementary school Duco?
I was a Beaches kid, so
okay.
I was Adam Beck in the Beach, and then I was St. John's, and then it was either I was going to Malvern or Neil McNeil, but my brother had gone to Cardinal Newman. So, my dad was living on the Bluffs at that point, heading into grade 9, and it was just up the road for me. So I was only there for the first 2 years. Then I was in Kitchener, but I spent majority of my childhood on the beach and, playing house league at Vic Village and doing all those things. But then I kind of transitioned a little bit into Scarborough, lived in Whitby. My dad's actually back in Scarborough now, up at Port Union, where Hendo gave the shout out to the Black Dog and Ted's and Fratelli's and all the local spots there. So I still venture out there all the time, and I believe your family's out there as well, right? So
yeah, like I do the recordings from my mother's house, and that's where I am right now. So it's great because I get to come here. Mom cooks a nice home meal. Get to do a show with Mike Duco, have another little visit, and then I'm gone. So I'm usually in Pickering at White's and 401, but I'm here a couple times a week as well, and just right beside Fratelli's, like you mentioned, in Highland Creek, brother.
It's a good spot. That's some of the best Italian food in Scarborough right there.
The best Italian food in Scarborough, yes, man, for sure. I agree with that. Small venue, but the food outweighs any negative. And it's kind of cool to be in a small place. Sometimes those big places that are empty don't have the feeling like a Fratelli's does, right? So yeah, man, that's really cool. I'm happy that you brought that up, my friend.
And then you got Ted's right next door too, and Ted's is a staple.
That's right. Ted's is like to my family, Ted's is like a landmark. Because I noticed it when like Pat, Liam, Catherine, my mom, like anybody would be describing where we lived to another person in Scarborough, maybe they didn't quite understand what Highland Creek was. But once we said, Ted's restaurant, Shamrock Burgers, that, and they're like, oh yeah, Ted's. It's got the big mural on the side, Ted's in red. I'm like, yeah, they do a lot of movies from there.
For sure, it's a good spot.
It's a very good spot. So, dude, who were you playing for in the GTHL when you lived in the Beaches?
Oh, I was a Wexford Raider boy for the first 4 years.
Okay.
Then I was kind of your prototypical GTHL kid that bounced around a little bit, and I went to the Canadians for a year. Ended up on Vaughan for the Pee Wee year, and then my last 2 years for Bantam minor and midget is what it was called at that point.
Yeah.
I was Toronto Marlies, so that's where I played with Rich Clune and Tom Jefferson were my two line mates, Mike Danton's little brother. So it was three guys of similar stature that all had similar games, and we were a force.
Yeah, bro, I can only imagine. Let's talk about the year for the Richmond Hill Vaughan Kings, your Pee Wee season. Okay? Now, where I want to go with this is I want to talk about the Quebec Pee Wee International Tournament, my friend. I saw in my research that you participated in that tournament with a team from Vaughan, Ontario, which is obviously the Richmond Hill Vaughan Kings. Were you guys wearing the LA Kings uniforms?
Yeah, similar.
Like
it wasn't similar, exactly, right? But it was the black, the silver, and the purple. It wasn't identical, but it was quite similar to the colors.
Just like kind of the Leaside Kings are similar to it as well, right? But what I'm trying to get at is it's a pretty cool logo in jersey. Richmond
and I wore number 99.
Did you really?
Yeah, tough one. I think I asked. I think I said I'll take 14, and if you don't have it, 99. And I showed up, and 99 was on the jersey. So I rolled with it. Not the ideal player to wear 99, but it is what it is.
That's really funny, Dukes. So this is why I like to talk about the Pee Wee tournament. I love it when I see that a player played there, because for me, Dukes, that tournament was my introduction to the big lights. Is that the case for you?
Yeah, I mean the spotlight was on you there, right? There was people watching it. You were in the Colisee, and I think at that point people were smoking cigarettes in the arena. So a little bit different than it is now. But Andrew Cogliano was on our team, and obviously a lot of people were watching him as probably one of the fastest players out there, and against Honey Baked and Little Caesars and all these teams that were kind of those American rivals that we had at all the tournaments. And we ended up losing in the finals, actually. So we went all the way, and I still have the VHSs at my mom's house up the road from all those games. So quality of TV wasn't exactly where it would be today, but it's always cool to put it back in a VHS and take a look.
Definitely. How well did you guys do?
Oh, we lost in the finals. So we went all the way through.
Finals. Sorry, I didn't catch that. Sorry, buddy.
We ended up beating Honey Baked in the semis, and they had like Nathan Gerbe and some of those guys that were quite good.
Yeah.
And then I forget who it might have been, the Elgin Middlesex Islanders or something along those lines. I can't recall exactly what the finals was, but we ended up losing the finals, which was quite devastating.
Wow, bro. And
But I
it
still have my like little scarf with all the pins on it, and I still have my mini stick in the basement here that my
yeah.
son was playing with for the first little bit, and I had to yank it out of his hands. I'm like, buddy, that's like a
Whoa.
18-year-old mini stick. Let's put that on the wall.
Yeah. Put that on the wall. We got some mini sticks that we just picked up from Canadian Tire for you.
Yeah, you can use this one.
Yeah, dude. I have a lot of that stuff too. Pat played in the tournament for the North York Canadians with like Ace Stew and those guys, right? And Rain Carnegie.
Yep.
So they made it to the finals. They lost to Russia, right? I played for Wexford, bro, when I was in Pee Wee. I was Don Mills every other year, but Wexford and Pee Wee. And we didn't do that well. So I don't know what it's like to be playing in the semis and the finals.
It was like I said, at 12 years old, like, you're
Yeah.
exposed to your mom and dad watching your game and your grandparents, right? And you show up to relatively sold out arena of people that actually care, and all the people that lost and are still around on the weekend, and everyone's watching and the spotlight's on. So I don't recall too much of the game exactly, but a loss is a loss.
Yeah, dude. But it would have been the 15,000 capacity probably, right? Or whatever, the 16 or whatever the Colisee held.
Yeah, it was busy. So once again, like you talk about the spotlight and having eyes on you at a young age, like there was some serious pressure felt at 12 years old.
Yeah, dude. So I appreciate you sharing that. I didn't know you guys made it to the finals, bro. That's pretty sick. I also wanted to ask you about the Thornhill Major Islanders, because like that was the team that you played with Evan Henderson, correct?
Yep.
Okay. So now so this was a little bit of well, actually you played for Richmond Hill Von Kings and Pee Wee. So Thornhill Major Islanders, that wasn't a big deal. That wasn't too far for you.
No, and my brother was driving me, right? So we were on the same team. So he was on Wexford the year before, and I don't think ice time was kind of what he wanted it to be for what he thought he could provide. And I remember that he was having conversations with Thornhill, and I think they might have been the Rattlers the year before or something before. Yeah. They weren't the Islanders. So he ended up getting that job there, and I was drafted to Kitchener and all of that stuff. So I went to camp, and I was offered as a 5th round pick, like a 13 forward position. And I was kind of weighing out the school package and, the play time and everything, or I could go back, and my brother has a good gig as a first line guy on Thornhill, and I could kind of be his sidekick as the little brother. So it was kind of an easy decision for me to come back home, and we hadn't played with each other since my first year of playing hockey in house league. So that was a really cool experience for us.
Dude, that's really, really cool. I had no idea that your brother played on that team.
That was the only reason I went there. I think I might have taken the 13th position with the Kitchener Rangers had it not been for his influence on that team. So and we both did quite well that year. Statistically, that was probably his best year. And obviously I came into a good situation where they wanted him and they wanted me as well to come. So power play, first line, penalty kill, everything you could ask for as a 15, 16-year-old kid was given to me.
How happy were your parents that season?
I think they were pretty happy. I don't know how many games they came out to, but the fact that he could drive me and they didn't have to go to 2 different places and watch 2 different games and juggle kind of that whole scene getting through the city. I think it was obviously an easy sell for everybody.
And how many years are you guys apart?
3 years.
You guys are 3 years apart. Okay,
he's an 84,
yeah. So he's 2 years younger than me. That's right. When I went to Cardinal Newman, your brother was there.
Yeah, and once again, it's kind of like my path through life, right? He went to Newman, I went to Newman. He played on Thornhill, I went to Thornhill, and then we just kind of from there split off, and he was NCAA Division III bound, and I went to the OHL.
Okay, so yeah, I was gonna ask about that. So how far did your brother go?
He went to play for Oswego State, which was one of kind of the highly touted Division III teams in New York there. So he went there. He was there for 2 seasons, and similar story to the junior career. I don't think that he was getting the playing time that he thought he deserved. So He then transferred over to Buff State, a little bit closer to home, right at the border there.
Yeah.
So, once again, easier for my parents to go and be able to watch him play, for him to scoot home if he needed to as well. So he went and graduated from there, and then ended up going back and doing his master's in teaching. I think at Madai College or something like that in Buffalo. So he's technically could be a teacher, but now his path is with the Ryerson Rams as a head coach.
So he's currently the head coach of the Ryerson Rams?
He's currently the head coach of the Ryerson Rams. Kind of a historic year for their program this year. They previously to this year had never made it past the second round, I don't think. So they went past the second round. They ended up losing in the finals. They or the semis. They ended up being the third seed, and they made it to nationals, and then ended up beating, I think it was UNB in the first game, upset them as a third seed, and then ended up losing in the next game. And I think they ended up finishing fourth overall in Canada. So pretty good year for a program that has never made it to that level. So
Jeez. No, that's impressive. Like, you know what? Like, I was before the recording, I was talking to my mom, and we were talking about you because she knows you. And I was saying, I went to school with his brother. He's got an older brother. But like, to be honest, bro, I don't know why, but I don't think I knew that he was a hockey guy like that. Like, I knew he played when we were younger, but I didn't know that. That's very impressive. But what I really wanted to tell you is, I was like, Mom, you know what? Like, Duco and his brother are like, like when you're a confident guy, you could feel comfortable with giving a dude a compliment. Like, you're just saying, yeah, man, the guy's got swag or whatever. I was saying to my mom, I'm like, Mom, these two guys, they're brothers. They don't look exactly the same, but they're like Abercrombie and Fitch models, man. Like, these guys could probably be models. You know what I mean? Like, apart from what they're doing. I'm like, the family must have good genes, because I just always remember how clean cut, well dressed, properly mannered you and your brother are, man. It's very impressive. I had to mention, I'm a big believer of giving credit when credit's due.
Well, I appreciate that, and I know that he would definitely say that as the older brother, he's the better looking one. But we'll be debating. We'll be debating about that for an entire life. So it's all good.
I love the sibling rivalry, buddy. I got it with two of them, man. I got Freddie Jones Jr. and I have the mayor, bro. So you know what I mean? I and my sister too, man. She's in the rivalry as well. So you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I always had the little brother thing going, right? So I was always one of the youngest in the families, and all of his friends would come over. You brought up like Evan Katsopoulos and a few of the boys that used to play with him, and they would come over and give me the beats pretty good. So I think some of them like to take credit for my toughness at the end of the day, but once again, another debate for a long time.
Yeah, dude. That's, man, it's so cool. So, okay, bro, I want to, you see the smile on my face. I want to get into the Kitchener story now. As we discussed before the recording, Duco, like, the advantage for you guys that look like models is we are a video podcast as well. So the benefit for us is that Mike Duco being on the show, we're going to get extra traction. Like, even though you're a great father, great husband, people can't hate that, the ladies love you, bro. They got to, man. We're going to get a lot of views, man. You're going to have fans. My wife will be proud of this, though. She'll be like, yeah, my guy got them more fans because he's my guy.
I hope so. And you can see over my shoulder, I did quite well too. So
you did very well, my friend.
It's all good.
You have to go that way, the other shoulder. No, other one. Yeah. Anyway, bro. So now I'm wearing a Kitchener Rangers t-shirt. We talked before the recording. We talked about Sean Fafaro. Man, okay. So my question to you is, were you an underager?
I ended up playing because I kind of told you I was drafted 5th round, and I was presented that 13th forward position, which for development's sake, I didn't know if that was the best move for me. So I went to play junior. I did quite well statistically. And then, come just before Christmas time, Pete DeBoer and Steve Spott are calling and saying, hey, this is kind of your path. I think this would be really good for you. So we sorted out the educational package stuff and some of those things. And then I signed a 10-game contract. So I ended up playing 5 games in the regular season as an underage, and then I saved the last 5 for the playoffs.
Nice. So yeah, so you got to play your 16-year-old season, which made you become a 5-year man for the same team.
I was there 5. I didn't know if it was going to be all 5 years, because Pete usually would press my buttons pretty good and let me know that maybe I'd be staying in the Sioux after a road trip on a bad game. But I was there for 5 years, and we ended up having a really good relationship. So,
how many billets did you have during that time?
So funny enough, the first year of that 10-game stint, I was with Hendo's first billets.
Okay.
So the next year after that, I moved into a family by the name of the Kaufmans. They were on 89 Burbank, just outside of the auditorium there, just across the highway. So it was logistically, it was really made sense for me. Without a car, my first year, I could walk to the arena if I needed to. It was quite close, and I ended up living with them the next 4 years.
Wow. So they were amazing billets.
They were great for me. They had rules. They had young kids that kind of looked up to me at the time, and they gave me a little bit of leash every now and then when I got older. But as long as we had that mutual respect and I wasn't stepping over any boundaries, we were always in good terms.
Wow. So your parents must have liked them too then, right? Like over that amount of time, like you get to know people.
Yeah, and once again, I mean, for the most part, it wasn't my parents' decision, right? They liked me, I liked them, and regardless of the family situation, which I'm sure they all liked each other, but it was all kind of me. And was I comfortable there? Yes. Exactly. Did they like me? Yes. I'm gonna stay.
Yes.
And as Hendo touched on there, that's not always the case for a lot of people, right?
No, it's not.
You play on a team for 4 years, and there could be 4 different billets.
Exactly.
It's not always a good situation. It's not always a match. So luckily enough for me, it was a match.
That's awesome. And the reason why I kind of get into the billet situation a little bit, Dukes, with the guys that played Major Junior, is, man, like, especially Dukes, that you're a coach and or that you have a lot of experience in coaching. I mean, bro, if we think about it now, the lives we lived when we were 16, 17, 18, 19, we were teenagers, dude. We were following a pro schedule. We had to worry about school. We had to worry about our billets. We had to worry about girls. All these emotions are going through us. We're adolescents. Like that's a lot to worry about at that age, and then perform in front of 5,000 people and have the same kind of pressure that they do in the NHL.
Yeah, I mean, and Kitchener's a good example because we sold out most games. And that wasn't the case for like a Mississauga or some of the other teams, right? Like, we knew every Friday night on a home game that there'd be 5, 6, 7,000 people there. So a little bit of pressure, yeah, but I kind of thrived on that. And we had Dave Schneider, the announcer guy. He always hyped up my last name for me. And by the end of my 4 or 5 years in Kitchener, the fans would be doing a Duco chant. So I always worked myself up for those games.
Duco. What was it?
Well, the way that Schneids would do it, he'd say, Mike, Duco.
So he'd stress the ooh?
So he'd stress the ooh, and then it was kind of like
Duco.
So funny enough, because I went and did a refereeing for the OHL in an exhibition game in Kitchener as a first year. And as he announced the referees, he did the old school Mike Duco.
Did he really?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, man, that's pretty special, eh?
Yeah, it was funny. It was the first time I'd ever been booed in the auditorium.
That's unreal, bro. Okay, so listen, this stint that you had with Kitchener, bro, I'm a stat guy, Duco. I noticed certain things, right? You guys made the playoffs every single season. I know that you guys hosted a Mem Cup during that time too, right?
My last year, yeah.
Okay. And so every year you guys were good. Very good.
Pretty much, yeah. My first year, we almost got upset by Erie, but Mike Richards, I think statistically, if you look at his playoffs, he just went off and he put the team on his back, and it's kind of what Richie did at that point. I think the second year, I don't know if it was Owen Sound we ended up playing and losing in the first round. And then the third year, I don't recall exactly. It might have been Plymouth. We had played there and lost in the first round. And then, we were hosting the Memorial Cup my overage year, and
Yeah.
they went for it.
Yeah, dude. So I've been to the Odd recently, like we discussed. Those renovations, I was trying to think of the word, renovations, that was for that year, right?
So
Your overage year?
they had put in the extra boxes and raised the roof and did all that stuff. And previous to that, they had done a little bit to the room, but not much. It looks, the dressing room itself looks quite similar, the stalls and everything, to what it was. But
Okay.
like the kitchen and the Danny Liebold's training area and the offices is all completely revamped and redone since I've been there. So I've been through it, and it's elite.
Because, dude, I'll be honest. I mean, I was there in 2002, and you said they redid all the offices, like the front office you're talking about?
Yep.
Because it was nice then.
It was always nice, and I thought was the thing. Like they were redoing things that
They just
didn't
wanted
necessarily,
to be the best.
they wanted to be that upper class in the league, and they always were, and they just kind of stepped a little bit level above with that dressing room.
I mean, they're neck and neck with London, bro, I feel, with like the elites in the league as far as arena, attendance, all that type of
But
stuff.
when you talk arena, like, it's two completely different atmospheres, right? Like,
True.
London,
That's
brand
true.
new and has that kind of NHL vibe, new school, where you come to Kitchener and it's like
Maple Leaf
Maple Leaf
Gardens.
Gardens, and it's a tough place, as my buddies used to tell me. It's a tough place to come and play.
Yeah, I could, well, definitely be tough if you got Mike Duco coming in on the forecheck, smashing you through the glass.
Yeah,
Right.
there was a few questionable ones probably over time, but most of them were clean.
So tell me about the Mem Cup hosting, bro. First of all, how did you guys do?
We lost in the finals. Kind of story of my life, it seems to be, is making it to the dance and never winning. So that year we ended up going to the finals because our whole thing was, we were hosting, so we were guaranteed a spot regardless. So the big thing was coming in the front door, not the back door. We wanted to do it the proper way. So, you see a team like Windsor previously who lost in their first round, they're hosting, they get a month off, they win the Memorial Cup.
Yeah.
Right. So our thing, we wanted it to be, we want to win the league, we want to do it proper, we want to then obviously win everything. So we ended up playing Belleville in the finals, went to game 7. It was like PK Subban, Sean Matthias, Matt Bolesky. Our team was, pretty good. Like, if you look at the second line, it was me with Nazem Kadri at center and Mikkel Bodker as their second line. So you're like, who's the first guys? We had Justin Azevedo, 120-point guy, Matt Halischuk, golden boy from the World Juniors, and Nick Spalling, who was a high draft pick to the NHL as well. So like, our team was quite good. And then
we were the second line.
Second line. So that was actually, like, if you're the big stat guy, you take a look at my playoffs, 16 goals in 20 games. I had signed with Florida heading into that season as a free agent. So, confidence was quite high. I felt like I was working towards something rather than, like, wondering what was going to happen with my career as an overager, especially. So I was able to sign that contract, kind of get the weight off my shoulders. I'm worrying about, who likes me, who doesn't. I knew my path, and the whole goal for me was like, I know where I'm going to be next year. I need to really perform this year, kind of come out of my shell a little bit, be a little bit more offensive. Obviously, I scored goals previously, but statistically, that was my best year. And then I really kind of excelled in playoffs too.
Well, yeah. Okay. So let me add to that, Duke. So yes, 16 goals in 20 games. But what's more impressive is the 22 points in the 20 games. You're over a point per game in the playoffs, my friend. And that's pretty impressive, knowing how intense and how big of a battle playoffs is, man. It's just whoever is just lucky enough to stay healthy to finish almost at some points. The wars are so big, right?
Well,
so
and even, if you look at the line mates, I think they helped quite a bit. I think Bods was probably the fastest player in the league, and
really
not Nas with his elite skill and vision for the game. It was pretty easy for me to go to the net and get rewarded.
100%. So now, dude, okay, so you reminded me, that's right. You had signed with Florida going into that OA season. The reason why I kind of forgot about that is because didn't you sign with someone else before that?
No, I was kind of, for me, like in a place where they brought in 5, 6 overage players into my OA year, and I wasn't guaranteed a spot per se, so I was
Wow.
uncertain. And I think it might even been the same camp that Hendo attended at Kitchener. They hosted a rookie tournament. It was Toronto,
Yeah.
Pittsburgh, Florida, and Ottawa. I want to say it was 4 teams,
Yeah.
and I didn't have a camp to go to, and it was kind of discouraging for me because I was in Edmonton, probably what you're thinking, the 2 years previous. Went to their camps, did really well there, was playing exhibition games,
Edmonton, yeah.
and then I came into that year and nothing. So I was
Okay.
like, well, this is not kind of the way that I wanted to start my overage year, competing for a spot, firstly in this league, and not be given an opportunity to showcase myself either at an NHL rookie camp or camp at all. So I was going about my business, still grinding away, trying to make the team. And a player for the Florida Panthers had a groin injury. So Daryl Sutter comes down and calls on Pete. He's like, Pete, like, we need a guy that can kind of fill a spot for the week or weekend. So Pete's like, well, Duke's here has been to 2 NHL camps already. He's got the experience. He's scored goals. He's done well in this league. Like, give him a shot. So they call me into their office and they're like, we vouched for you, don't embarrass us. So I go out there and, I think we played 4 games. I probably had 4 or 5 fights. I fought Bugard's little brother, Alex Foster. There was like 3 or 4 other guys that I got in the mix with, and, put up some points. And at the end of that weekend, I got invited to camp, and I was like, oh, well, that's amazing. Like, I made an opportunity of nothing. So I ended up showing to that camp and, showed well again. And probably, I think I played like 6 or 7 NHL exhibition games. And they're like, hey, we'd like to see you in Rochester. So I went down to Rochester. I'm like, okay, well, I still don't have a contract, but trending in the right direction. They haven't sent me back yet.
Yeah.
So, I continued to have the conversations and then ended up signing my first ever NHL contract.
Wow, man, that's incredible story. Like that's a journey that I don't think I've ever heard that order before. You know what I'm saying?
No,
Like
it
that's
was
pretty cool,
definitely
dude.
it wasn't the easy path, that's for sure. It made things a little bit more difficult than to what you had said before. I had to play bigger, right? I was going up against some big boys, and if I wanted to play physical, I had to showcase that I could fight too. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I historically showed that I could score goals, and that never was necessarily the concern. It was more so like, if you want to play with an edge, can you answer the bell? So I started showing that I could do that a little bit more.
Yeah, dude. And like I was saying earlier, man, like I had no idea that you were so into that part of the game because again, not playing against you and you being 5 years younger, I just thought you were like a speedy guy that hits and scores, and which you are. Bro, I didn't know that you threw down the way that you did. So I want to talk about the first year pro in Rochester. Great season, end up getting called up, right? So now for the Rochester Americans, though, I think it's so cool to see now things changed a little bit, but Rochester's got the nice rink. They're a hockey city. There's a lot of culture and history there, right? A lot of tradition. You got the Blue Cross Arena, right? What was it like? Like that's a pretty cool place to start pro. Like it's not like you're playing in San Antonio or a place with no history. Like, were you pretty proud to play for the Emirates?
Yeah, I mean, I knew there was a great history there. The unfortunate thing for us is that we had then switched affiliates, so it was Florida. It wasn't Buffalo anymore.
That's right.
So I think there was a lot of people in the area that weren't necessarily too impressed with that
Yeah.
change within the organization. So we didn't necessarily get the fan support that I think it would have been had it been Buffalo
Mhm.
still, which,
Yeah.
it is what it is. It was pro hockey, and, we went out, and I don't think our team necessarily did that well. We were quite young, but for me personally, statistically did okay. Once again, still had to mix it up, go out there and
Yeah.
show that, I wasn't just a junior guy that could throw them down. I had to do it with some older guys now and some bigger guys. And that year I ended up getting the Booster Club Rookie of the Year. So overall, it was a pretty good first year for pro for me. Just I got to play. It wasn't too far from home, so my family got to come quite often to watch me play. And while I played in Rochester, my brother actually married a Rochester girl. So he met her at Buff State. So when we'd go on the road, I'd hand him my keys, and he'd stay over at our place, and he'd have his girl with him. So it worked out quite well for everyone.
Yeah, it sure did, my friend. So let's talk about, you were 5th on the team in scoring your rookie season, but first in penalty minutes. You're being a little humble, my friend, about I had to mix it up a little bit. But you led the team in PIMS, bro. You got to give yourself more credit, man.
I guess situational wise, as a smaller undrafted player, you have to outshine the first, second, third drafted players.
So
right?
True.
And that's kind of is what it is. And even when I went into that rookie camp specifically, Pete DeBoer and Steve Spott had called me aside, and they're like, you have to be noticeable all the time. If you're not scoring and you're not hitting, you're going to fight. And that's just kind of the way it was. And that's kind of the way that they installed that in my brain. And it was, if I wasn't scoring this game, I have to do something else to stand out. Otherwise I won't get called up, and no one's overly invested in me. They signed me, but the first, second, third round picks that, there's scouts and jobs on the line that if they're not playing and they're not, playing before me, then there's an issue. So.
And it looks bad on them too, right? Because they, it's not a player that they drafted got called up. It's the hardworking free agent signing that got called up. So now you mentioned that if you didn't do those things, that you weren't going to have a chance to get called up, but you sure as heck got called up, Dukes.
That's because I was doing those things.
I want to talk about that call up though. Tell me and the listeners about how you got found out that you were called up to the National Hockey League.
Well, I would have been, I believe I was at our practice facility.
At ESL?
ESL, and we were just finishing up pre-game skate because we had a game that night. And I got called into the office, and they're like, you're getting called up. And, and I'm like, oh my God, like I can't believe this. Obviously, I call my dad right away and call all my family, but they're like, your flight's at 12:30. I'm like, it's 10 o'clock. I'm like, that's a pretty quick turnaround. So I had to sprint back downtown, get my stuff, get to the airport, get on a flight, get to Florida. Now, I'm arriving in Florida at 4 o'clock or whatever it is, 3:30, and I'm going right to the rink, and I still haven't even eaten.
Wait, hold on. You played that night?
Yeah, I played that night. So I showed up, and I'm like, I haven't eaten. I came right from, usually I would have gone to Olive Garden in like Henrietta for pregame there. And I just had to rush to the airport and get on the flight. I had obviously some snacks, and everything just seemed quite hectic. So I ended up getting to the rink and had like a Cliff Bar and a bagel and whatever they had there. And into the NHL I went.
So who are you guys playing?
I want to say that it was Atlanta. And sometimes when I got called up, as you probably know, and you get called up and you don't play a lot of minutes. So I think Ace Stu was on that team at the time as well. So
that was when he was in Atlanta.
Yeah. So get called up, and from the first period till the end of the game, I don't think I touched the ice. But I had the best seat in the house. So
100%. But hey, listen, man, I'm not letting you off that easy. Again, stat guy, right? I'm seeing 50 PIMs in 10 games for the Florida Panthers. So one would say that does average 5 minutes a game. He got 5 minutes a game. Now, maybe there was a game he got a 10, but Duke, so it looks like you threw down in the show. Did you throw down in the show that year?
I fought in the NHL Daniel Carcillo, Ian Lapierre, Mike Brown, And then I think what really boosted up my stats when we were in Washington. I don't know if this was my first year, but the next time I got called up, I think it was the year after, and it was Alexander Giroux. I want to say he was like a Hershey legend. He got called up to Washington, and he absolutely buried Kulikov, our rookie D-man. So I'm sitting on the bench, probably been sitting there for a while. I knew I was up next, and I just beelined off the bench and and attacked him. So I got kicked out of the game, and I think I got 32 penalty minutes for that. Funny enough, my dad and brother flew to that game. My brother was the only person in the entire building wearing a 68 Florida Duco jersey, getting popcorn thrown at him, and I get turfed out of the game in the second period.
Was he all loud and stuff? Was there a possibility of? Buddy, I've been seeing these videos of all these fights in the stands at like NHL, NBA football games. It kind of gets wild sometimes when you're the lone opposing jersey in the big crowd.
He was never much of a fighter, so I think he just probably took it at that point.
Sure. No, and that's pretty cool though. Like, yeah, bro. I mean, that's very impressive. Those names you said there, like, I thought you're talking about first round Brown. Was he in Anaheim?
He was in Toronto.
He was in Toronto. Okay. Oh, okay. So you're talking about the Brown that was playing for the Leafs. So you're so young. I'm thinking about other Browns that are, 5 to 10 years older, right? So no, but some of those names that you said, they're very, very, very legit, bro. Like you're very, very legit, and it's very, very impressive, man. So now
and just those were the people that just said yes.
Okay. I get you.
So there was times where we were in the one story I love, and I tell some of the boys that I coach. We're in Madison Square Gardens, and I'm playing with one of your foes, Steve McIntyre, and we're on the fourth line, and we hadn't touched the ice in a period and a half. And all of a sudden, I'm on the first line with Stephen Weiss, and I look to my left, and there's Sean Avery, and I'm like, okay, I get what's going on here. So I give him the old tug at the laces, and he's basically telling me like that I was an embarrassment, that I'm not Yager to take off number 68, which I did not choose 68. That was the call-up number. And Dubinsky was giving it to me about that number too. And I followed him around the ice for 30 seconds. He said no, and back to the bench I went.
I hear you, bro. We got to try though. We got to try. So that's cool. So your second. So you became a 20-goal scorer in the AHL, right? Which earned you another call up that second year, like we were just talking about. You also were like 20 goals is like a big thing for you. Like you scored 20 goals. I mean, you scored 32 the one year, 24 one year, but you scored 20 goals 4 years in a row in the OHL as well. Well, dude, you're a natural. Would you consider yourself like a natural goal scorer? Like, when you get the opportunity?
Yeah, I think I was opportunistic, right? Like I always had a good shot. None of mine were overly pretty per se, but a lot of kind of in that blue paint, tipping pucks, kind of playing in those dirty areas, and a lot of them kind of on ozone entries and just getting a quick snapper off. And I always, felt I had a really good snapshot, so that was something that I would always utilize entering the zone, and that's how I scored majority of my goals.
Right on, bro. And more power to you. I wanted to talk to you also, Dukes, about the trade to Vancouver. Now, Sergei Shurikov, man, does he ever sound like a big-time goal scorer? Did he ever pan out? Like, I know he was a big prospect.
The guy that I was traded for.
Yeah. Did he end up panning out or no?
Honestly, to the best of my knowledge, he never reported. And he ended up in the
So he probably stayed in the KHL or something.
He stayed in the KHL, so traded me for nothing virtually. But Mike Gillis was my agent when I was 14.
Mike Gillis 15. Was your agent?
Yeah, 14, 15.
You know who my first agent was? Mike Gillis.
Well, he used to bring us out to Kingston, and we would stay at Queens and we would train. So obviously we had that little bit of a relationship. So he brought me in there and just kind of voiced his opinion that this is an opportunity for me in a new spot. And Canadian market, obviously a lot a lot different than playing for the Florida Panthers. No,
Yeah.
no diss to the Florida Panthers, but we'd have open practice in Vancouver and there'd be more people than a regular game in Florida.
Yeah.
So it was quite cool, just kind of once again like being in the limelight there and having a lot more eyes on you. I thought that was really cool. Obviously, I only got 6 games out of that year. Did decently well point wise, 2 assists in those 6 games. And
Yeah.
I fought Ryan Getzlaff that year and Lance Boma that year. So once again, mixed it up to showcase that I could do a little bit of everything, but spent majority of that time in Chicago.
Yeah. So that's exactly what I wanted to talk about. I wanted to talk about the Chicago Wolves. I had an experience with the Chicago Wolves, but the funny thing is, Duco, is I never played one game. I signed 3 PTOs and left right after Christmas because I just wasn't getting in, but they had so much money and I was such a big character in the room that they're just like, it was Shovel Dayoff, the guy that's the Winnipeg Jets guy. Was he still the GM when you were there?
Wendell Young.
Wendell Young. Okay, so Shovel Dayoff, Wendell Young, the goalie?
The goalie, yeah.
Yeah, so he was the goalie coach when I was there.
Yeah, so he ended up being the GM. He's still the GM now.
Wow. That's cool. Thanks for telling me that. I know I love to know shit like that.
He is the most jacked general manager of all time in hockey history.
I could definitely agree with you on that one, bro. But I remember that too now. That's crazy. What I wanted to outline is that I always refer to the Chicago Wolves as the New York Yankees of the AHL. And the reason why I say this is because at least when I was there, it seemed like they had an unlimited budget. It seemed like we were flying everywhere except for Peoria in Rockford. Rockford wasn't even in the league yet, so just Peoria. Everywhere else we were flying. I couldn't believe it. The practice facility was off the charts. Their willingness to sign like big free agent like veterans, like bro, they had like 8 veterans on the team. You could only dress 5 that played over 250 games. They had 8, so that you had 3 guys that were making $100,000 each sitting in the stands with McMorrow, the guy that was with Buffalo, now with them. They had their people like Boris Valabic. He was supposed to be like, he was like a 6'6" defenseman.
I played with Bo in Kitchener.
Did you? Yeah. So he was always supposed to be like this Chara type of guy that will fight, and he was supposed to be good. And so they were kind of hoping on him. Guillaume Debiens.
Yep.
I don't know if you played against him.
He was in Manitoba.
Okay, so he was there, and he was like a 20-year-old. So like he was willing to fight, put his head down, and go. They had Valabic on defense, so there was just no room for me at all, being a free agent, as you know. But they were paying me. They were paying for my apartment. They were giving me per diem because it was like over that time. So I wasn't paying rent. I was making more money than I'd ever made in Rochester, and they were giving me per diem. Life was great. But the competitor in me wanted to play, man. I wanted to play. So that's when I first went to the league. But my experience in Chicago, I felt like I played in the NHL, brother. Like, how did you feel playing there? Like, would you describe it the same way, or did it change? Did the gangster behind the net, was he still there?
Who, the gentleman with the top hat on?
Yeah.
Mike the Hat, I believe he passed away recently.
Mike, I forgot he died?
I believe he passed away, yeah.
Oh, so, God bless his soul.
Yeah, but he was a legend there, right? And
Mike
I'd always wonder what his affiliation with the team was, but he was always outside the room and fist bumping all the guys, and it was first class all the way. You couldn't pick a better spot. Also living in Chicago, and playing at the Allstate Arena with the fireworks show, and they go above and beyond for their players.
Yeah, dude, it's so cool there, man. Allstate Arena, what does it seat? Like 16,000?
No, it's not as
12?
big as you. Probably 12, yeah. Like
okay,
11,
sorry,
12.
12. But what I'm going at with this is there was one year before the Kane and Tays era, before Chicago started getting good, they were really bad. Like before that 3 cups in the 6 years, they were really bad, bro. And when I played for the Wolves, our attendance, the Chicago Blackhawks were the last team in the league for attendance. The Chicago Wolves were first in the American Hockey League, and we were averaging about 500 or 600 more than the Hawks. Like it was
Well, is
insane.
that when like Krog and Hadar and all those guys were
Yeah,
there?
I tell you what, Hadar, Freddie Brathwaite was our goalie. Krog was so good, bro. I was his roommate on the road a lot. You know what I mean? He liked playing with me because he liked rooming with me because I'd never played. So he knew there didn't have to be like a sleep schedule. Like he could sleep whenever, you know what I mean? So I got him as a roommate. The guy would wake up to like natural sunlight. He always wanted the blinds open. He was like half Japanese or something. And he was like all into like meditation. And brother, he's a very interesting guy, man. I should try to get him on the show now that you mentioned him.
Well, he
Like,
was a
yeah,
sick
so
player. Both those
yeah,
guys
the
were
100-point
unreal.
season. Hadar, who ended up being like the all-time leader in points in the AHL or something, he was so good, man.
He just
Hadar
won the
was
Senior
so
A League for the Dundas Real McCoys.
He's playing for Dundas
Yeah.
right now? Wow, he must like really put on a show there, man. I've never seen someone stick handle like him, shoot like him. He's a little guy too. How small was that guy?
He was, well, his nickname was Mini, right? So he was a smaller dude, but he was
5'7"?
the vision for the game was beyond elite.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Beyond elite, 100%. But so yeah, man. I mean, you got a chance to play in Chicago. Did you go out downtown Chicago? Did you go to Wrigleyville?
I never went to Wrigley. I went to the White Sox Stadium. We were living in Arlington Heights, which was quite far outside of the city.
I know it.
And I think that it was more so told to us, like, we don't need you downtown. Like, A, you're going to be late for everything due to traffic. And B, like, we don't need you guys out till 4 a.m.
Yeah.
So I actually didn't have a single drop of alcohol that year. I was the DD driving the boys back and forth from downtown. So, I still had a lot of fun there, and I had a lot of experiences with the boys downtown, but a different perspective as the sober driver back and forth.
In a way, you might have had a better time though, Dukes. Like,
I remember it.
Yeah, exactly. Now, was the wife with you in Chicago then?
She was not. No.
Did you guys knew each other at that point, or you hadn't even met her yet?
Hadn't met her. No.
Wow. Okay, right on, bro. No, I like to know, like, when guys get married and stuff, it's cool to hear like what cities the wives were with them with, and all that type of stuff, right?
Because she came with me to the ECHL cities and UK, so she didn't get the glamorous American League and NHL experience.
Cool. So the next couple of years, the reason why I was asking, because the next couple of years, I mean, you play in some pretty cool spots. I mean, you make the decision to go across overseas to play in Austria, right? And then you also have the experience of playing in the UK with Sheffield. Now, at this point, Dukes, like you're such an interesting guy. You had such a great career. And there's still like a couple more things I want to talk about. Right now, I'm kind of picking and choosing the topics. But I want to jump to Sheffield, like because there's, let's say there's 10, I'm picking the 3 or 4 that I really want, right? So now let's get into Sheffield. I know you weren't there long, right? But like Sheffield, the UK, first of all, did you think the hockey was going to be as good as it was?
I did, because I knew players there.
Okay.
So I wasn't kind of oblivious to what was going on. I had a good understanding of who's been there, who's done what. I used to watch your videos, chanting to the crowd and doing the whole sheriff routine. So I had a good understanding of what was going on in the league. And then I got there, and honestly, like, cool place to be. I got the Heritage Pass and did all the castle tours, and me and my girlfriend, now wife at the time, was doing a lot of traveling, heading into London because we weren't too far, all that stuff. But I never really caught my stride there, I didn't think. I don't know if it was, me as a person or just me as a player at that point. Maybe I didn't have the same, jump that I had, a couple of years previous, just based off of where I was. Maybe I was feeling a little down on myself, something like that. But I didn't think I really did that well there, and I wasn't getting the opportunities that I thought that I deserved with my previous experience. And there was a lot of guys that were going out the door in front of me, and it didn't necessarily make me too happy. So I
Yeah, they
voiced.
fire guys quite easily in that league, eh? And that's how they say it, that you got fired. Like
Yeah,
that's the words that they use. And it
so I
seems
went
like,
in and I kind of just voiced that concern for me, and said, I'm not on a power play. I don't kill penalties. Like I don't know why you even have me here. And it was more so like, okay, well, we'll give you your 2 weeks notice then. I was like,
okay, fair enough. So it was kind of
I'm
like
like,
a
okay.
mutual thing.
Yeah, I'm like, okay, that's completely fine with me. So I started getting on the horn and calling people back home. And I had a few connections back in the ECHL. I obviously wasn't going to go back to the American League based off of where I was. I understood that. And where I had been before in Indianapolis. So I went back to Evansville, Indiana, and became the captain there halfway through the year. And
Nice.
statistically in the ECHL, had my best season point wise in pro.
Right on. And so now, at what point, when did the Jackals opportunity come up?
So it was the coach that had come in, the assistant coach. His name was Dave Leger. Al Sims was the head coach. Dave was the assistant. He had come in kind of the same time as me. And I continued to voice to him that I wanted to get into coaching. That was kind of like where I saw myself in my career, because I was kind of noticing more of a downward trend in the leagues that I was being in. So I kind of wanted to find a different path for me to kind of catapult myself into. And he got the head coaching job in Elmira. So he reached out to me and he's like, hey, we don't have a big budget, but we can be the player coach. And I was like,
oh, okay.
I was like, well, I don't want to play anymore. Like, I don't, especially, for what you're asking me to play for, I don't think that's worth it for me. He's like, okay, well, you don't have to play, just come and coach. So I just ran practices, did development stuff, was helping with the strength and conditioning things, video stuff, and running the defenseman. So whatever our team wasn't doing too well statistically, and the team itself was kind of crumbling at the core. So they ended up firing him and had come to me after and said, we'd like to ask you if you want to take over this position. So I was like, well, yeah, obviously, like I'm not going to say no. I'm here and I'm invested now. So yeah, I'll do it for sure. So ended up being the head coach. And then a couple of weeks later, the guy that was the GM and head of hockey operations, who gave me this role and opportunity, comes in with a binder and he goes, here. I'm like, well, what's this? He goes, it's the CBA, all the trades, border visa stuff. I'm like, well, why do I need this? You do that. He goes, well, I just took a job with the Reading Royals. And I was like, so now I'm here alone. So I ended up doing kind of both those roles, still running the strength stuff at the gym across the street, still doing development, still doing the video. And that's kind of how I kind of jumped into this whole coaching and development stuff.
Yeah, dude. So that's super cool. So you're the last coach in Elmira Jackals history, correct?
I am the last coach of the Elmira Jackals.
That's right, bro. And you'll always be that. Well, do you think they'll come back, or what's the deal with them?
I'm not too sure. There was a gentleman there that had owned some car dealerships and he wanted to purchase the team, but to the best of my knowledge, there was maybe money owed, or the rink needed revamping, and there was some things that he didn't necessarily want to take over. So they just called it, squashed it, and then they had the Elmira Enforcers in the Federal League, I want to say, like 2 years later.
Yeah, but that's nowhere like the level that the Elmira Jackals were.
No, it's sad because there was a good fan base there. Like, people loved hockey. There was people just off the border in Pennsylvania that would come and watch. There was people from that area that would come and watch. There was people from all surrounding areas that would come to watch the Jackals. And like, we fan support wise did really well. So it was a little bit disheartening, because I thought maybe if we were able to start another season, I could continue with the path that I was on and continue doing that. But things happened for a reason, and I ended up in Peterborough in the OHL.
Yeah, dude. So, and Elmira, like from what I know of it, great hockey town, great history. When I was in Rochester, they were a feeder team to us. Like,
guys, we were affiliated to Rochester and Buffalo.
It was still that way.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Yeah, man. So they were a big part of the program, bro. So like, I hope they do come back because I think that city deserves to see pro hockey. So that'd be great. So, dude, I want to talk about what you're wearing right now. Okanagan. Tell me about this. Tell me how you first got involved. What's the mission statement for you guys?
I guess everything they say is excellence in everything we do. So obviously it's an academy base. So it's the student athlete is kind of the whole model. You obviously want to academically have these kids set up for success to move on to Canadian American universities. And a lot of what they say their success stories aren't necessarily the hockey part. It's the kid that became a doctor, they became a pilot, that are doing good things in the world outside of hockey and become
Yeah.
good people based off the program. But flip back to, I was in Peterborough, trying to find out what did I want to do next. I ended up meeting the president of the company, Andy Oakes, and they were starting this division in Whitby. I somewhat live close to there as a Toronto guy, and I wanted to be in more of a head coaching role. So they approached me for that head coaching role. So I got the head coaching job of a U18 program for the
Wow.
first 2 seasons and kind of got that off the ground with a guy by the name of Paul Pascuzzi.
Okay.
So him and he was the GM, he was building out the team, getting the players in, obviously using me as a selling feature to get kids
Yeah.
in with the OHL pro background, NHL experience, all of that stuff. So 2 years into it, they approached me and they're like, there are a lot of the kids on your team are getting pretty good, like as individuals, and the team was excelling as well. Like, we would like to see this development on a company-wide basis. So they said, would you want to help build out kind of our skills and development curriculum for the academies? So I thought that was a really cool opportunity for me. And for me now, I get to kind of go to Penticton and I get to go to Edmonton, and I'm stationed here in Toronto and Whitby to work specifically with our teams. But during the season, I fly out to those academies and kind of do my thing on the ice with their players as well.
That's okay. So that's very impressive. So now tell me how, like, I saw all this stuff with the OHL combine though, dude. So what was that affiliation? Like, what were you doing there?
So our company they're heavily influenced in the Western Hockey League. So all the Western Hockey League combines, they provide kind of the on ice testing portion of it. So
Okay.
like I was in Winnipeg a month and a half or so back, helping out with the on ice portion as well as building out a skills practice for those players. So it's
Mm-hmm.
kind of what the model for me is. And that's like, and I was at the OHL or the CHL top prospects game in Kitchener, Ontario. I didn't do any skill stuff with those players, but it was more so just kind of being on the ice and having that company presence there.
Oh
And for
yeah.
me, it's just cool to be kind of face to face with some of the best players, in North America.
Yeah, 100%. So that's pretty cool, dude. You have a really, really good spot right now, eh? Like you must be very proud of what you've been able to get to this position.
Yeah, for sure. And I think obviously for me, it's just come with a lot of hard work and passion. And I know kind of the way I was a player and the passion that I had for the game and the way that I trained and kind of conducted myself in that way is something now that I try and teach these kids nowadays. It's not all it is about the flash and the skill, and I get all that stuff, but there's a lot more to the game than just that, and trying to kind of develop the overall player in person. And for me, I love getting to know the kids and becoming kind of a mentor and someone that they can reach out to on Instagram and send me a DM or send me a text and say, hey, like I'm having this issue or this is happening in the game and I need some. So just kind of being in that mentorship role for me is kind of something that I really take pride in.
Wow, dude, I'm hats off to you, man. I want to congratulate you and I want to tell you, man, you have no idea how big of an impact this has. Like sometimes when you're living at Duke's, like you don't realize it, but dude, like you're doing a lot, man. Just keep going strong and don't stop, man, because there's the sky's the limit. I mean, you're really, really in a good spot now, but I couldn't only imagine what the next step would be for you, bro. And it's exciting stuff, my friend.
It is super exciting and funny thing about your podcast, because I've been following along, and
I
somebody that
appreciate that.
I had crossed paths with in a Syracuse Crunch jersey. Also a legend for Syracuse was your boy John Morasti. I sent him a
You fought
message.
Verasti?
No, I never would. I think he
Oh,
wanted to kill me at some points, but I never wanted to kind of jump to that level. But I sent him a message the other day and just said, "Hey man, hope you're doing well." But I never would have even seen him or known what he was up to if it wasn't for kind of the platform that you're providing. So I just said, "Hope you're doing well." And we never talked outside of the arena, and it was more so death threats on the ice from his end to me. But just kind of those little connections and things that you're kind of opening the door for people here. So it's kind of cool.
yeah, dude. Well, I really appreciate that, man. And John's actually going to be one of the judges for that Ice Wars event in Edmonton. And I'm going to have all three judges as an episode. We're doing the recording next week. So it's a pretty tough lineup, man. So it's John Nasty Morasti, it's Frank the Animal Bialois, and then it's Brad Wingfield, the wingnut. So we're gonna have the three screens going. It's gonna be really exciting, man. But that's cool that you and John were able to correspond like that. And that's the way I look at it too, Dukes. Like, I mean, think about it for me, bro. Like, I get to, like, for guys like you, I get to reconnect. You know what I mean? And then for guys, I have guys on my show that I've been looking up to my whole life, man. So like, it's very cool for me. I get to do something that I have a passion for. I want to have a career in this path. It's my running resume, and I get to be with all the boys, bro. So there's nothing negative to it. Love hearing stories like you just said. Love the fact that you're able to come on the show. I know we've been way over the timeline, so I'm sorry. You got to tell Mrs. Duco that it's my fault. Okay. So but man, the insight that you provided though, Dukes, and the stories that you had, the fact that you got to play where I played, man, I can't tell you how much I appreciate it, man. The listeners love these stories, bro. And like, you're talking as at a player's standpoint at first, but you're also talking as a coach and a referee. You're like a triple threat, bro. You're a development guy too. Like, you're a quadruple threat, man. So
I,
like,
I
so
appreciate
yeah,
that.
there's a lot of hockey people listening to the show, man. And like, you got everything going for you. And I wish you nothing but the best in the future. I really hope we see each other soon, brother, because we're actually pretty close. I'm mostly in Pickering these days, but I stay at my mom's house a day or two a week sometimes too. So yeah, bro, I definitely like to get together. And I miss you guys, man. There's so many, but we're all so busy and stuff. So sometimes things like this, it brings people together, and I really appreciate you coming on. I know I keep saying that, but it's so true. So anything that you'd like to say before we sign off, my friend?
I mean, I've been following along, as I said. I love all your little catchphrases. I love the fact that you've kind of developed this platform for yourself. You clearly have a knack for it. You're quite the personality. You always were. I enjoy listening to you. I enjoy the fact that you even approached me to have me on here. And as you said, we've been to a lot of the same places. We've done a lot of the same things, and I'm excited. I'm excited to see what you have here in the future.
Awesome, buddy. Kudos to that. I really appreciate it. But the one thing I was going to say is it'd be really interesting to see this summer how many times like all the boys do like join up, because man, I'm telling you, there's a lot of us from the East End. I don't know when the last time everyone was together. Obviously, with COVID, it hasn't been possible because we live in such a like bizarre world, Dukes. Like I mean, like, it's been a little while since things have been back to normal, but I used to say, I don't know if the last 2 years has been the longest 2 years of my life or it's been the shortest 2 years. That's how weird it was with this pandemic. But we're through it now. We're only going to move forward. A lot of people are starting to get like a little sick lately, but I think we're past this, man. And I'm just looking forward to seeing everybody again, because I'm telling you, like, pandemic time was really weird for me. I don't know how it was for you.
I was stuck in a 1-bedroom condo with a newborn, so it was quite difficult. And talking about the boys, like, obviously Hendo now lives quite far away, and
Yeah.
C-Stu is in Minnesota.
PI.
I saw A-Stu last week at the
Did you?
OHL Combine.
Right on. How
I
well is he doing on TV, eh?
it's amazing to see the success that he's had.
Really proud of him.
I was at a Leaf game a couple of weeks back where I saw Dub Sims, and I got a signed stick from Dub Sims in my son's
No way.
room. So still keeping in contact. Obviously, social media helps. But yeah, the pandemic's been hard on everyone, and we haven't really been able to be face to face per se, but it'd be really good to have a Black Dog night or Ted's breakfast or something along those lines.
But also, Dukes, what's also coming up is the XO boys are coming to town. The Weeknd's coming to town. They're doing a world tour for the After Hours and the new album. It's like both albums, and they're starting it at the T-Dot. It's the beginning of July, and I have a feeling that Freddie Jones might be inviting a lot of the boys. So I think it's July the 8th, man.
That's my birthday. So I actually...
No way.
July 8th is my birthday, but I spend...
July 8th is your birthday, bro.
I spend all summer in Penticton, BC, running camps. So I'm there July 1st to 31st. I have 2 of my own specific weeks at the end. And the first 2 weeks, I bring the whole family, and it's kind of a vacation per se for everyone.
Dude, but that's really cool.
Yeah, it's in Penticton, it's a beautiful place, and there's wineries everywhere. And now my wife isn't pregnant this time around, so we'll actually be able to have some fun.
Right on, bro. I'm so proud of you, Dukes. I want to thank you again for coming on. I'm so glad to be talking to an old buddy. That's why I've kind of been dragging this on. So but this is great. I want to thank the listeners for tuning in to another episode of The Sheriff featuring special guest Michael Duco, aka the Dukes. Thanks for coming on. Thanks for listening, guys. Woo!